Do you know that a psychology professor spent 3 years going undercover, training as a car salesman, a fundraiser, a telemarketer, an advertiser, not to study those industries, but because he had realized that the people working in them had, through pure trial and error, discovered something about human behavior that academic psychology had almost entirely missed. His name was Robert Cialdini. He described himself, without embarrassment, as a lifelong easy mark, the sort of person who consistently ended up donating to causes he had no interest in and owning subscriptions he had never wanted. He decided to find out why. What he found was that compliance professionals, anyone whose living depends on getting other people to say yes, were converging independently on the same small set of techniques. Different industries, different products, different countries, and the same handful of levers. Those levers work because they exploit shortcuts that are, in ordinary life, genuinely useful. That is the crucial point and the reason this material is worth understanding rather than simply memorizing. These are not tricks that work on the gullible. They work on everyone because they are hooked into decision rules that are correct most of the time. His book, Influence, has sold in the millions and remains one of the most cited works in applied psychology. Nothing here is financial advice. This is an examination of a body of research on persuasion, in original terms, and what it means for the decisions you make with money. Start with why shortcuts exist at all, because it frames everything. The world presents more decisions than any person can analyze. You cannot conduct original research on every purchase, evaluate every claim from first principles, or verify the competence of every professional you deal with. There is not enough time, and there never will be. So the mind uses rules of thumb. If an expert says it, it is probably right. If everyone is doing it, it is probably sensible. If someone did me a favor, I probably owe them. If it is scarce, it is probably valuable. These rules are efficient and, on average, correct. That average is what makes them survive. But a rule that fires automatically can be triggered deliberately. Someone who understands the rule can construct a situation that sets it off without the underlying reality being present. The appearance of expertise without expertise. The appearance of scarcity without scarcity. The appearance of consensus without consensus. That is the entire mechanism. Not manipulation of the irrational, exploitation of the reasonable. The first principle is reciprocity. When someone gives you something, you feel an obligation to give back. This is close to a human universal, appearing across every society that has been studied, and it is arguably foundational to cooperation itself. A species that can extend credit to one another, do something now, be repaid later, can do things a species without that capacity cannot. The exploitable feature is that the obligation triggers on receipt, not on request. You did not ask for the gift. You may not have wanted it. The feeling of owing arrives anyway, and the repayment is frequently disproportionate. A small gift can produce a much larger return because the discomfort of feeling indebted is unpleasant enough that people will overpay to be rid of it. This is why free samples exist, why charities enclose unrequested address labels, why a salesperson buys you coffee, why a financial advisor offers a free consultation, a free dinner, a free portfolio review. The transaction is not the coffee. The transaction is the obligation. There is a variant that is subtler and more effective, sometimes called rejection-then-retreat. Make a large request you expect to be refused. When it is refused, retreat to a smaller one. The concession you have apparently made triggers reciprocity. The other person feels they should concede something in return. And the smaller request, which was the actual target all along, gets accepted at a much higher rate than if it had been asked first. Anyone who has negotiated with a salesperson who went to speak to their manager and returned with a slightly better offer has been on the receiving end of this. The defense is not to refuse all gifts, which would be both impractical and unpleasant. It is to distinguish a genuine gift from an opening move. A gift given freely deserves reciprocity. A gift given as the first step of a sales process is not a gift. It is a cost of customer acquisition, and you owe nothing. The second principle is commitment and consistency. People experience strong pressure to behave consistently with what they have previously said, done, or committed to, particularly in public. Again, the underlying rule is sound. Consistency is a valuable trait. Someone whose positions shift constantly is hard to trust or coordinate with. And internally, consistency is efficient. Once you have decided something, you do not have to redecide it. The exploitation is to obtain a small, easy commitment first, and then rely on the pressure to remain consistent to carry the person toward much larger ones. This is why sales conversations begin with questions you will obviously agree to. Would you like to be more financially secure? Is it fair to say you would rather retire comfortably than not? Nobody disagrees. But each small agreement is a stake in the ground. And by the time the actual proposition arrives, declining it means being inconsistent with a series of positions you have already stated aloud. The effect strengthens when the commitment is active rather than passive, public rather than private, and voluntary rather than coerced. Writing something down is more binding than thinking it. Saying it in front of others is more binding than saying it alone. In financial terms, this shows up in a particularly costly way. Sticking with a losing position because selling would mean admitting the original decision was wrong. That is consistency pressure operating against your own interests, and it is one of the most expensive biases in investing. The defense is to notice when your reasoning is doing the work of self-justification rather than analysis. The question that cuts through it is direct. Knowing everything I know now, would I make this same choice today? Fresh? If the answer is no, the only thing keeping you in it is consistency with a past self who had less information. The third principle is social proof. When uncertain, people look at what others are doing and take it as evidence about what is correct. This is often excellent reasoning. If 100 people have eaten at a restaurant and returned, that is real information. Aggregated behavior encodes knowledge no individual has. But social proof is most powerful precisely when it is least reliable, under uncertainty, and among people similar to yourself. When you do not know what to do, and the people around you appear to know, you follow. If they are also following you, the entire group can move together on the basis of nothing. This is the mechanism underneath every financial bubble in history. Prices rise. Rising prices are taken as evidence that the asset is valuable. That evidence attracts buyers. Those buyers push prices higher, generating more evidence. At no point does anyone need to evaluate the underlying asset, because everyone is reading the behavior of everyone else as though it were independent information. It is not independent. That is the flaw. 1,000 people all copying each other is one opinion held 1,000 times, and it carries no more information than the original. The defense is to ask what the crowd actually knows. If they have independently evaluated something and reached the same conclusion, that is meaningful. If they are each looking at the others, the consensus is hollow regardless of its size. The fourth principle is authority. People defer to legitimate authority, and again, the rule is sound. Expertise is real. A doctor genuinely does know more about medicine than you do, and the shortcut of trusting them is efficient and usually correct. The exploitation is that we respond to the symbols of authority rather than to authority itself, and symbols can be worn by anyone. Titles, credentials, including ones that sound impressive and mean nothing. Clothing, expensive offices, confident delivery. The research is consistent that these markers produce deference largely independent of whether genuine expertise sits behind them. Financial services is unusually exposed here because the field is full of designations of wildly varying rigor, some requiring years of examination and some requiring a weekend and a fee. To a non-specialist, they are indistinguishable, and that indistinguishability is not accidental. The defense is two questions. Is this person actually an expert in this specific thing? Not adjacent to it, not confident about it, but credentialed and accountable in it. And, separately, how are they paid? Genuine expertise combined with a conflicting incentive is not neutral advice. It is a sales pitch delivered by someone who knows what they are talking about, which is considerably more effective than one delivered by someone who does not. The fifth principle is liking. People say yes to people they like. The factors that generate liking are more mechanical than flattering. Physical attractiveness, similarity, shared background, interests, opinions, even names. Compliments, which work even when transparently insincere. Familiarity through repeated exposure, and association with things that are already pleasant. Every one of these can be manufactured. A salesperson who discovers you both sale, who compliments your judgment, who takes you somewhere enjoyable, is not necessarily insincere, but the effect on your decision is the same whether they mean it or not. The defense is a separation that sounds simple and is not. Distinguish how you feel about the person from how you feel about the deal. If you notice you have come to like someone unusually quickly in a commercial context, that is worth registering. The question is whether the proposition would still look good coming from someone you found irritating. The sixth principle is scarcity. Opportunities appear more valuable as they become less available. Part of this is a reasonable inference. Genuinely scarce things often are valuable, but a substantial part is loss aversion. The prospect of losing something moves people more powerfully than the prospect of gaining the equivalent. Framing a decision as a potential loss produces more action than framing it as a potential gain, even when the two are logically identical. Scarcity is the easiest principle to fake, which is why it is the most heavily used. Limited time offers that renew perpetually. Countdown timers that reset. Claims that only a few remain. Deadlines that exist purely to prevent reflection. And that is the actual function. Scarcity does not primarily make you want the thing more. It removes your time to think. Urgency is an argument-suppression device. The defense follows directly. Whenever you notice urgency, slow down, precisely because the urgency is engineered to stop you. And ask what you want the thing for. If it is genuinely useful to you, scarcity is irrelevant to that usefulness. If you want it mainly because it is about to be unavailable, you want the availability, not the object. Cialdini later added a seventh, unity, the sense of shared identity, of being the same kind of person, rather than merely similar. Family, ethnicity, nationality, a shared cause. It is the most powerful of all, because it does not merely make you like someone. It makes their interests feel like your own. Affinity fraud runs entirely on this. Financial schemes that target a religious congregation, an immigrant community, a professional association, work because membership substitutes for verification. Someone who is one of us receives trust that would otherwise have to be earned through evidence. The most consistently damaging financial frauds are not the ones with the cleverest mechanics. They are the ones where the victims never checked, because checking would have felt like an insult to someone in their own group. So what do you actually do with this? The realistic answer is not that you will now spot these and become immune. You will not. Cialdini has spent decades on this material and reports being susceptible anyway. Knowing about a bias does not switch it off, in the same way that knowing about an optical illusion does not make the lines look equal. What understanding does give you is the ability to notice afterward, and to build the pause that lets that noticing happen before the decision rather than after, which points to the only defense that reliably works: time. Every one of these principles operates most powerfully in the moment. Reciprocity fades once the discomfort passes. Consistency pressure weakens when you are not looking at the person you committed to. Social proof loses force when you are not standing in the crowd. Authority is easier to question in private. Liking cools. Scarcity, if it was real, is still real tomorrow. And if it was manufactured, tomorrow reveals that. Any decision that cannot survive a night's delay is a decision someone else needs you to make quickly. That is not a rule about persuasion. It is close to a complete defense against it. Again, none of this is financial advice. It is a description of how compliance actually works, assembled by someone who went and did the jobs to find out, and who concluded that the most useful thing you can install is not skepticism, but a delay.